to be with you this morning. As Emma said, I'm the CTO of Alsid, and this morning I had the chance to discuss with you some topic which is not covered that much into cybersecurity conference, because it's the security of your AD, Active Directory infrastructures, with a very, let's say, catchy tagline. I'm sure you read the press recently. There is some AV vendor 2 days ago that released a report, and the name of the vendor is Avast. Published a report on how they got compromised. Very interesting article, and if you read the paper, you will see that a large part of the attack path used by the attackers to compromise the environment leverage lots of, let's say, vulnerabilities into the AD environment of this company. And if you're interested in that topic, you will quickly notice that for the past 10 years now, I mean, large companies has been continuously compromised because of an insecure AD environment. And the main, let's say, objectives of this talk is to explain to you how attackers are able to compromise such environments, what are the mistakes that we all made when it comes to securing such critical environments. I will make a quick intro to recap why it's important to secure an AD environment, but I guess you already know about it. So what are the attack paths, the, let's say, hidden one that attackers are using to compromise such environments, and more interestingly, what we can do to efficiently secure such environments. I like open sessions, so feel free to ask lots of questions into the app. I'll be happy to answer all of them at the end of the sessions. And to briefly introduce myself, so I'm a CTO but also a security researcher. I spend part of my life working at Apple in California. I was working with the team in charge of the security of WebKit, you know, the HTML renderer that ran into Chrome and Safari. Then I came back to France to help building the agency in charge of cybersecurity called the ANSSI. Probably never heard about it, but anyway, I spent 10 years there. I'm leading the red team of the agency, and this is where I started to work in the, let's say, Microsoft cybersecurity ecosystems. I published several papers around AD security, and did some few conferences in, let's say, technical conferences like Black Hat, PackSec, Hack in the Box, kind of conferences. So today will be slightly technical regarding the attack vector that I'm about to show you, but I hope that it will be interesting for you. So let's start with the very beginning. Why it's important to secure an AD infrastructures. If you, I'm sure you know about it, but it's still interesting to recap that. AD is in charge of the authentications and access control either on-prem or in the cloud. Basically, each time you log into your Windows laptop or perhaps your Android or iPhone, a request will be made to the AD to validate the login and password that you just entered. And if it's the right one, then you get the approval and you'll be able to access your Windows environment. That's the same thing for many services into your organizations. If you open your email, if you go to SharePoint, if you, open a file share, each time AD will be in charge of controlling that you can actually access the resource that we are willing to get. There's lots of protocols behind it. One of the most famous one is called Kerberos, the authentication protocol that uses tickets. But there is many others used by AD, Azure AD or AD, that's pretty much the same approach, to validate an access control on authentication requests. Meaning that if you're able to take over the AD infrastructures, what you can do is quite interesting. You can forge this authentication request to act as anybody into your organizations. If you're able to successfully compromise an AD environment, you can act as the CEO of the company and say, hey, I'm the CEO, I would like to access that specific mailbox, my own mailbox, the CEO's mailbox. Or I would like to access the financial reports which has been placed into one specific file share, for example. And as you are acting as the CEO, obviously, I mean, the access will be granted, and you will be able to access some very sensitive environments. This attack path is today quite common. I mean, you just need to talk to your red team if you have the chance to have this type of team inside your organizations, or if you do, and I'm sure you do, a security assessment as well. If you do penetration testing, I mean, pretty sure that the team that will be conducting this specific exercise will target AD because they know that if they're able to compromise the AD infrastructures, they will be able to access all the resources and basically capture the flag that they need to validate their exercises. So clearly, attackers know that AD is a critical piece of infrastructures, and it's I mean, the fact that AD is central, and the fact that AD is implemented in so many organizations today. I'm pretty sure all of you, or let's say 90% of you, are using Office 365. If you're using Office 365, you are using AD. You probably, I don't know if you know about it, but you are using it for sure. So attackers know that if they want to target an organization, it's very likely that the organization will have an AD infrastructure. So they know that if they I like to think attackers as a startup or small enterprise. They need to invest time finding vulnerabilities into one product, and they want to maximize the impact of their findings, meaning that if they build a new, let's say, ransomware, or if they build a new, Trojan or anything like that, they want to make sure that it will be efficient in lots of organizations. Building something related to AD, they are sure that no matter what the organization they will be targeting, mid-size, large corporates, they will find an AD, so their payload will be working. And that's not a surprise that for many years now, lots of, let's say, targeted attacks use leverage AD vulnerabilities to successfully compromise environments. I think the first company that acknowledged a cybersecurity incident related to AD was Google in 2010. So a long time ago. And what was the answer of Google at that time? They say, okay, we're going to get rid of every Microsoft infrastructure services because they believe that it was too hard to secure, so they removed every AD they had at the time, and they built what today is called the zero trust approach. It comes after the Aurora attack that they suffered in 2010s. Kind of interesting. But the attackers continuously continue to leverage AD and security to compromise networks. Perhaps you heard the story about Baltimore that got attacked from a ransomware this summer. Everybody talk about the ransomware, but security experts realize that the ransomware is one thing; it can encrypt the hard drive, but the attack was very clever because on top of the ransomware, they had a way to steal the AD credential to propagate laterally into all the computers of the city. So clearly, AD, if you read that it's a targeted attack, is almost all the time part of the scheme. The question is now, why did we fail? What are the root causes that explain that today it's kind of easy for attackers to compromise AD environments? I mean, once again, talk to your red teamer. Pretty sure they will be able to get access to your AD environment in one day, or perhaps two. I was conducting a red team exercise before, and my boss said, hey, you have 1 week to compromise that specific organizations. Usually I was able to do the job in 1 day, and during 5 days or 4 days, I was just chilling and doing something else. Dream job, I can tell you. Why? Because I was targeting AD infrastructures. So why do we fail? Why people that are trying to secure AD, what they forget, and what are creating the vulnerability that I'm about to introduce in a few moments. First of all, there is a lack of communications regarding AD security. It's hard to find meaningful papers that simply explain what are the attack techniques used by attackers to take over an AD infrastructure. There is few technical blog. There is one that I would recommend. It's called adsecurity.org that try to analyze reports of compromise and try to understand what are the, I'd say, weak signals or the vulnerabilities leveraged by attackers to compromise the organizations. If you read reports of threat intelligence companies like CrowdStrike and others, you may find few intel, but most of the time it's very hard to know what are what are the vulnerabilities that got exploited by attackers to compromise to compromise environments. Meaning that it's hard for blue teams to know what they should do to secure such environments. In addition to that, you have new type of attacks that started to appear for the past 5 years, I would say. They call it pass the tickets, golden tickets, pass the hash, keep the roasting, S for you to cells, and many other attacks. Today's attackers has a deep knowledge on how works the AD infrastructures. And if you add the fact that it's hard to get good technical information regarding what are the attacks that attackers groups are using, and the fact that today most of the attacks has some public or open source tool that can be used to exploit the vulnerability, it makes times very hard for blue team to secure it. In addition to that, AD has been in many organizations. AD has been installed at the beginning of the year 2000, 2001, something like that, meaning that you have very old infrastructures that suffer, from the fact that the state-of-the-art security at the beginning of this century is not the one that we're having right now, meaning that you have lots of misconfigurations, protocol issues that can lead to some security incidents. And if you didn't, ask to your management to give you the fundings to perhaps reshape the architectures of your AD environments, or perhaps increase the security boundaries that exist into your AD environments, it's pretty sure that attackers will use some very old configurations of very old protocols to compromise your AD infrastructures. And even if you are conducting, security assessments, even if you are doing some review of the configuration of your AD, you still can be exploited. Why? It's because AD is a massive, I would say, infrastructure. If you're talking about an international company, it's very likely that you will have more than 100 servers that support AD between different geographical sites, meaning that you will have one in London, one in, in Seattle, one in Paris, one in, in Singapore. And all of these servers will manage thousands of something that we call objects. An object could be user accounts, could be the accounts used by your workstations, it could be some security policies, the kind of things. And you have lots of different objects running into your AD infrastructures. And it's very hard for security teams that obviously doesn't have the time to focus doesn't have lots of time to focus on the AD security, to make sure that each of these objects are well secured. There is too many. It's very hard for them to control all of them. And meaning that automatically the security will erode with time, meaning that tiny changes will be made on one object, tiny change will be made on another one, and at the end, you will have lots of tiny changes that will create something that we call an attack path that will have a huge impact at the end of the security of your AD environment. And this is why it creates at the end a vulnerability that can be exploited by attackers. But let me give you a more, clear example. Most of the time, when people are trying to secure an AD infrastructures, they are trying to secure who is admin, meaning who is this guy. and who is able to access the server called domain controller that manage the AD infrastructures. They spend all the time and all their efforts trying to know who is admin and who can access my domain controllers. That's a good start. But today, if you look at how attackers are compromising an AD environment, they don't need to be part of the domain admin groups or the domain controllers groups. They use, because it's too obvious, lots of people are putting detection capabilities to monitor who is member of these groups and this kind of stuff. So they want to go a bit, they want to be more sneaky, I would say, more stealthy into the organizations. And they know that each of these node here is an AD object, as I may say, as I just said before. And as I said, these objects are connected with each other. So instead of going after the domain admin groups, which is highly monitored, they will go after something which is less monitored, and they will still be able to compromise the environment. If you take a look to the paths that exist here, I mean, obviously you have the top admin groups, domain admin groups, but perhaps in this group, you have another group where Alice is part of. Meaning that at the end, if you target Alice, which is part of the nested groups, which is part of the domain admin groups, still you will be able to compromise the environment. But from time to time, it could be more, let's say, sneaky than that. I don't know if you know about it, but the security model of all Microsoft products rely massively on single sign-on, meaning that if you are connecting to a server using RDP connection, for example, you're going to expose your credential on the machine that you connect to. Meaning that if I'm connected to one server, my passwords, we're more talking about Kerberos tickets or hash, will be exposed to the server. Meaning that if there is somebody, in that case, it's Bob, in that graph, which have access to the server, because he's an IT administrator of the machine, he will be able to capture my hash. All right? So if you think about it, if I'm the global admin, and if I'm connecting to machines which is unsecure, everybody that got access to machines will capture my hash and will be able to replay it as myself, as the global admin, and then compromise the organizations. This is exactly what happens to SingHealth. I don't know if you ever heard about SingHealth. SingHealth is the health, let's say, company in Singapore that manage lots of medical records. Actually, they got compromised last year, and what the attackers did, pretty simple. He connected to one server that was managing, I don't know, I think it was not related to the business, it was a side server, and he waited. He waited for 4 months that somebody with high privilege connect to the machine to capture the secret credential of the user and to replay it and plant backdoor into the AD infrastructures, in order to, again, escalate its privilege on the infrastructures to, at the end, fully compromise it and get access to all the medical records of the city. And this is exactly the attack scenario that the guys used, actually. Waited for somebody to expose its credential and then steal it, replay it to create a backdoor. That's one of the attack vector that was mentioned. And I just said, it's way more stealthy than trying to create a user account into the top admin groups. See, it's more difficult to detect and more elaborated. And this type of attacks, you have plenty. You have other in this slide. For example, for the city of Baltimore, the attackers managed to create something that we call a group policy. It's in a purple node on the graph. And this group policy is actually let's think about some script which is automatically applied on every workstations when they start. So it's pretty convenient for ransomware to propagate. The attackers managed to create a rogue GPO to make it apply on every workstation of the organizations, and then to propagate the malware this way. So that's kind of interesting, because we know that, we can realize that attackers has a good knowledge on what is the security model of Active Directory and other Microsoft products, and they leverage that to take advantage of it. I mean, they know that it will be very hard for say blue teams to monitor all the objects. So their goal is to find one which has not been monitored properly. They have some misconfigurations that can use to steal a credential, deploy some script, this kind of attack vectors. Today, when it comes to compromising a Microsoft environment, it's not about finding a software bug that somebody will exploit using, I don't know, Stack Overflows, attack techniques, or these kind of things. It's more about leveraging some tiny misconfigurations or tiny issue in the configurations of an AD infrastructures to get access to the server, get to the credential, and then escalate his privileges. Kind of sneaky, kind of interesting, I mean, from my point of view. But before, I mean, going too much into details, perhaps let's make a recap about how it works. I mean, what's an actual AD attacks and how it works. Usually, attackers follow 3 main steps. First of all, they need to break in. Thankfully, AD normally is not directly exposed to the internet. It's an infrastructure service, meaning that you need to be inside your corporate network to access the AD infrastructures. So the first thing that attackers need to do is break in. I mean, every several ways, and you all know about it by using some phishing attack or something like that. Attackers will be able to get access to one computer into your organizations, and then you're going to start some ReconFace. So this is why endpoint security is very important, because you need to, the zero trust approach encourage you to have security measures at every logical, let's say, layer of your organization. So you need to have something that protects your endpoint, EDR, AV, something that you can work on. But the second step, it's called the ReconFace. Attackers, thanks to his access to one workstation into the organizations, will be able to reach the services that manage your AD infrastructures, and will start to do recall, meaning that we'll try to find, just by reading the content of the AD, the misconfigurations, the issue that I mentioned in my previous slide. Just with a regular user account, and that's the beauty, but also something quite dangerous with AD, just with a regular user account, you can read the access or the configurations of mostly every object into your AD infrastructures. Because, for example, me, Luke, random guy, I can read who can read the email, the mailbox of the CEO, just with a regular user account. And I will notice that I know Alice, Bob, and Charlie can access the mailbox, so I will redirect my attack to target this time Alice, because I know that Alice, is the secretary of the CEO, and it is very likely that she's less secured as the CEO, so it'll be easier for me to compromise in her machine to then get access to the machine of the attackers. So yeah, attackers will do some recall, try to find the misconfiguration and the issue, and when you find one, it will actually exploit them to do privilege escalations. When you go after AD, you don't start with no privilege and directly end with all the access to your organizations. You're going to raise step by steps. You're going to start from unprivileged user, then you will have access to a few servers, then you will get access to more servers, etc., until you are able to reach the domain admin privilege that will lead you to get access to all the resources of your organizations. And trust me, attackers always follow this specific path. What can we do? What can we do for that? Thanks for us, Dimitri made some great tool that can help you map the attack techniques used by attackers to do these privilege escalations, And I encourage you to, am I pushing me to finish my presentation? Made great work mapping all the attack techniques used by attackers to do this ReconFace and pre-escalation phase. And I encourage you to have the time to take a look to the MIT matrix, look for some pass the tickets, pass the hash, silver tickets, and other attacks part of this matrix, because if you cover the specific risk, then you will avoid attackers going after your AD environment, and they will prevent them from escalating their privilege and gain full access to your AD environments. I'm going to skip the few slides. Unfortunately, I have a few attacks that I wanted to cover with you, but I mean, I believe you will get access to the slide deck afterwards. To conclude by explaining, it's going to work. What you can do to protect your AD environments? What are the actionable actions you can take to secure your environments? First of all, I mean, as I said, AD is not exposed to the internet. So preventing the primo infections is something very important, and avoiding lateral movements. You need to have good endpoint security. Second thing, you need to have capabilities to audit and assess the security of your AD environment through times. As I said, AD is an infrastructure that is evolving quite fast. You need to know how secure you are regarding that infrastructure. You have many solutions that can do that. Alsid is one of them, but obviously there is others that can help you see what are the attack paths that exist into your AD environments, in order for you to, at least, if you can fix them, at least monitor them. Then you need to have something that detects somebody that go after the holes that you detect, in order to detect an actual attack running into your AD infrastructures. And then the next slide, I have more technical actions that could help you. I mean, if you want to go a little bit further into securing your AD environments, if monitoring for you is not enough, you want to actually improve the security of your AD infrastructures. You have these actions that you can take: reduce the number of admins, reduce the number of high privilege that you give to non-admin users, these kind of things. Unfortunately, I will not have the time to cover this specific subject, but I will be seated right behind this door. If you have time and if you want to discuss AD security, I'll be happy to discuss it with you. Thanks very much for your time. I don't know if you have time, if we have time for questions, but if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer all of them.
Okay, thank you for it.